Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor, and I just want to quilt. Today we're talking to Jan Peachey. She is in Vancouver, Washington. She is a friend of a friend, and she is incredible. She tells us stories of why she quilts and how quilting has followed her through her life. It changes a bit on different occasions. It's really an uplifting, awesome interview. At least I thought so. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Jan. So tell me who you are and where you're speaking from.
My name is Jan Peachey. I'm in Vancouver, Washington.
Awesome. How's the weather up there right now? Is it cold? Are you getting cold weather?
Wet.
Wet. Interesting.
Wet and cold.
Wet and cold. We are very sunny and brisk for New Orleans, so we're kind of freaking out. It's probably not cold for anywhere else, but for us, we're like, we have to put on coats. Yes.
Right.
So cool. Well, thank you for being willing to chat. We got through, we're connected through Jackie, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I went to law school. Well, actually, my husband went to law school with Jackie, but she became a good friend as she seems to gather friends. She's really good at that. So she's a great human being, isn't she? She's one of those people that are remarkable.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. So so thank you for chatting. So the first question I'm gonna ask is, what is your first memory of someone quilting or sewing in your life?
My first memory of sewing was on my toy sewing machine when I was about 11, making doll clothes.
Interesting. And had you asked for it, or was it a surprise?
Yes, I had asked for the sewing machine, yes.
And did anyone in your family sew, or what made you decide that you wanted a sewing machine?
My mother made almost all my clothes.
Ah, interesting. And so how was it successful making clothes on the machine for the machine that you got?
Not really. It was a chain stitch machine, so, it really didn't hold together super well. But it wasn't long after that my mother introduced me to her sewing machine and helped me get started on that.
Oh, very cool. And so when did you start quilting?
Well, when I was pregnant with my first child, and he's 43, so, 43, 44 years ago. Yeah. I made a quilt for him.
You made a quilt for him. That's like a story I keep hearing. It's like that first kid that you want to quilt, and then it just kind of sticks. So what kind of quilts what do you like quilting? Do you have a particular style you like or anything?
I like to machine piece, but I hand quilt when I can. I really enjoy the hand quilting, and I have hand quilted several bed-size quilts over the years. Now, currently, I don't have as much time because we do foster care. So when there isn't a baby in the house, I do these quick little tied baby comforters that I give away with the foster kids and to other charitable organizations.
That's really amazing. How long have you been doing foster care?
We've been doing foster care for 17 years.
Wow, that's amazing. We are it's not anything the same, but we've been fostering kittens. And when they're really, really tiny, they're still bottle fed, and it brings back the days of the every 4 hours of feeding, and they're just kittens. They're not humans. So I really admire you, because I think I'm barely surviving the fostering of the kittens. I have to tell you.
Well, they grow up faster for sure.
They do. That's true. We have to get them to 2 pounds, and then they're out of the house. So
yeah, then they're out. Yeah,
then they're out.
Our current baby is 13 pounds, and
wow.
he's still going to be with us for a bit. Yeah.
And how long do you?
He's 2 months old.
She's 2 months old. How long do you keep? How long is there a certain amount of time you keep the babies?
We do short-term care, so we usually bring them home from the hospital and keep them anywhere from 2 to 4 months, depending on the circumstances, both in our life and in what the program is for that baby. I mean, some babies are returned to their parents fairly quickly. Others have to go into ongoing care, and since we don't do ongoing care, then they find a suitable home for them and transfer them.
That is just a lot of work and really hugely admirable. That's amazing. And when you send them off, do you send them with a quilt? Is that what you were saying?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, they all have a quilt that goes with them. And often when I'm doing their pictures, like I'll take a picture of them on their 1-month birthday and their 2-month birthday, and I usually use the quilt as the backdrop and set them up against the quilt. So it's part of their history.
That's amazing. We hear a lot of people talk about charity quilting. How important do you think charity quilting and quilting, like in this setting, is? Why is it such a big part of quilting, do you think?
You know, it's interesting that you ask that, because I too have found among the people that I know who quilt and the guild that I used to belong to, the charity quilting was a huge part of it. And I just think that there is something about quilters in general that we like to give. Maybe it justifies our fabric purchases. I don't know. But I know for me, that's a big part of it, because I'm kind of addicted to children's fabrics. So I see them and I buy them, and then I have to, I don't have that many grandchildren. So I actually have to give them away, because right now there are, I think, 15 in my sewing room that are done. But I haven't taken them anywhere yet, because we got the baby, and that, kind of stalled me out.
What size do you normally, do you have a particular way you quilt? Do you do the same thing over and over, or different things?
Yeah, I do. What I ended up doing years ago, when I first started doing this for the foster kids, I was doing an individual quilt every time we had a baby. But then I discovered that I could, if I got it down to a science, so to speak, I could make more quickly. So what I've done is created a pattern that it uses 4 fat quarters for the center of the quilt, and then half a yard for the border, and a 1 yard piece makes the back. So it's all can be done with pre-cut stuff. Mm-hmm. So it makes it easy. And then I just buy fat quarters and then yardage for the other parts. But I have a lot of fat quarters.
That's really interesting.
And by a lot, I mean, I can't count them, because there's so many of them.
That's great. That's amazing. Well, I would love a picture of one of these to put up. You'll have a web page on our website about the interview, so I would love to have an example of it. And
sure.
Do you, when you're doing it for the babies, is there anything in particular you have to make sure? Like, do you use a particular type of batting, or do you machine quilt them, or tie them, or sort of what do you do to finish them?
I do turn and tie. I do the stitching around the outside. I use polyester batting primarily because of its washability. I never know where these quilts are going to end up, so I want to make them as easy care as possible.
Yeah.
Of course, all of the top and bottom are 100% cotton. I turn them and then stitch close the opening, and then I tie the central portion where the piecing is and then use a stitch in the ditch method to go around the border edge where the border meets the piecing. That kind of just holds everything in place. So through multiple washings. And I've tracked some of these quilts that I've given as gifts to friends, and their kids are like 12 and 13, 14 years old. Jackie has quilt that I gave to Cameron when she was little. And they're still hanging around.
That's so great. That's so cool. How big are they? So if they're fat quarter, they're about a yard, right? They're like a yard. The quilt itself is about a yard. Like 42 by 36? A yard placed. I do the back with a yard of fabric placed crosswise. So it's roughly, I think they're 34 by 42 when they're done, something like that, because it fits neatly on a 1 yard piece of fabric that is 43 to 45 inches wide. You know, I've started to make these. I'm experimenting every night and trying to quilt every night as part of this project, and I found that I really like that. I was just talking to my family about this. I love that size quilt. I love the like we buy a yard, you do something, you get it up, you get it done, because it's just a nice size. It's cuddly. It's not too big, but it's not teeny tiny either. You know.
No, and I got the size primarily because I spend a lot of time in the NICU with babies because a lot of our babies are medically fragile. And so what I noticed is some of the hospitals have quilts that they fit, like if the incubator is closed, they fit over the top of the incubator. And so I kind of gauged it by that. And it also is just a nice size because everything I work with is a standard size, so that the squares are cut, they're cut 5 inches, so they finish 4.5, and the borders are cut 4 inches, so they finish 3.5. I try to keep everything really simple to do. I stack my 4 fat quarters, cut all 48 squares. You get 12 out of each one, so then I put them up on the design wall. I use the same design pattern all the time. A friend of mine moves them around and does different things with them. But for me, I just do the same thing over and over again because I make a dozen, in a couple of months. So I need to be able to just move through them.
That's really
And they never go to the same place. So it's not like they can compare and go, oh, yours is so much like mine,
Right. Do you do a couple, like if you find a set of 4 fat quarters that you like, do you do a number of them in the same, are they all different or do you do some that are similar?
Oh, no, they're all different. There's no two alike.
Interesting.
No, even if I end up using, like if I bought 2 fat quarters of the same fabric, it will pair with, 3 other pieces. One of my favorite aspects of quilting is color. I'm kind of crazy about color. So putting together those, grabbing those fat quarters and seeing what goes together and then finding a border fabric that pulls it all together, that's part of the fun of what I do. And so everyone is different.
That's really interesting. Do you do more than just baby colors then? You don't see these as baby quilts. These are kind of life quilts for you. Is that right?
Ask again?
Yeah, I'm saying that, some people think that they have to give a baby quilts like powder blue and pink.
Oh, no, they're kid fabric. The theme, like usually what I call the anchor fabric that has multicolor and some, drawing or design in it. And then I draw from that to pull in the others. But most of the time they're either children's or infant to start with. And then the things that accompany it are just colors I've pulled that are going to work with it.
That's really interesting. How much do you think each so a little bit economic. So how much do you think each quilt costs?
I tried to figure it out one time, and current fabric prices, we're talking
so
2.5 yards.
Yeah.
So a total of 2.5 yards for the quilt. So at $12